Right now, you're sitting in a corporate meeting, a disastrous operational plan has been proposed by a senior executive. You know the math does not work, you know the integration will fail, but you look around the room and every single person is nodding, smiling, and praising the initiative. You swallow your date, force a smile onto your face, and agree with the room. You believe you are being a team player. You are operating under a catastrophic, mathematical, destructive illusion. The good vibes only policy is silently, violently killing your company's performance. While legacy HR department attempts to hide massive systematic failures behind forced smiles and toxic positivity, top-tier organizations are doing the exact opposite. It is time to stop masking operational friction with fake harmony and start operationalizing radical honesty to drive actual, undeniable growth and innovation. What if the absolute secret to a high-performance team isn't happiness, but rigorous, data-driven disagreement? Superficial harmony is a compliance-heavy trap that turns HR into a massive financial cost center. We are completely dismantling the corporate facade to show you exactly how the authentic conflict resolution replaces the fake smile and solves underlying operational friction forever. Forced optimism is simply a cheap mask for a broken systems, but radical honesty is a cold, hard engine for corporate growth. We are moving infinitely past the era of toxic positivity to deploy high-friction, authentic conflict resolution strategies. Learn how to transform your HR department from a superficial party planning bottlenecks into a high-performance architectural powerhouse through the deployment of productive, data-backed confrontation. Before I completely deconstruct the biological and the financial cost of a fake harmony, expose the exact mechanics of data-driven disagreement, and give you the precise architectural blueprint to wire your corporate culture for high-friction truth, hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell. I post daily videos showing you exactly how to navigate the global labor and capital market using cold, hard engineering logic. You do not want to miss these execution protocols. Stop suppressing the data to protect the fragile egos. Grab a notebook. It is time to engineer authentic conflict. Welcome back. I'm Dr. HR. To understand why my approach to the human resources, corporate culture, and conflict resolution is aggressively different from the soft, comforting platitude peddled by legacy HR coaches, you must understand my underlying structural logic. I hold a PhD in human resources, a bachelor's in computer engineering, and a master's from prestigious Tata Institute of Social Sciences TISS in Mumbai. I do not look at corporate conflict as a biological breakdown or an emotional failure. I look at it as a necessary collusion of raw data. Operating on the ground here in Dubai since 2010, consulting for Tier 1 corporate entities, sovereign wealth funds, and apex tech founders, I monitor exactly how elite companies processes friction. The companies that dominate the 2026 market do not mandate happiness. They mandate absolute, uncompromising truth. Let us systematically deconstruct this cultural and operational pivot through 5 distinct phases. The latency of toxic positivity, the high-stake cost of harmony, the architecture of radical honesty, the algorithmic conflict protocol, and the sovereign HR operate. Phase 1, the latency of toxic positivity, the contrarian reality check. We must first diagnose the exact debilitating vulnerability of a positive corporate culture. For the last decade, the HR department obsessed over employee engagement and service, cultural wellness, and maintaining a positive environment. They deployed a mandate of toxic positivity. A toxic positivity is a corporate directive that demands all communication must be optimistic, supportive, and cheerful, entirely regardless of the objective reality of the situation. In a complex, multivariable engineering environment, this mandate is lethal. It creates an information latency. Imagine a biological neural network. If your hand touches a burning stove, your nervous system does not send a positive message to your brain saying the stove is comfortably warm. It sends a sharp, violent, painful signal. Remove the hand. The pain is a necessary data. It prevents biological destruction. In a corporate environment, operational friction is a pain signal. When an API is failing, when a supply chain routing is mathematically flawed, or when a marketing budget is a bleeding capital, that failure generates frustration and conflict amongst operators. When HR enforces a good vibes only policy, They are systematically injecting Novocaine into a corporate nervous system. The engineers see the Oracle SCM integration failing. They see the database collapsing. But because they are terrified of being labeled negative, toxic, or not a team player, they encrypt their warning in a soft, diplomatic language. They hide the severity of a defect behind a fake smile. The data is corrupted. The latency between the moment the error occurs and the moment the executive board actually realizes the system is broken expands from 3 minutes to 3 months. By the time the toxic positivity wears off, the project has failed. The capital is burned and the apex operators have quit in disgust. Forced optimism is not leadership, it is a systematic refusal to face the mathematics of reality. Phase 2. The high-stake cost of harmony, the illusion of alignment. To understand why this destroys the enterprise value, we must analyze the mathematical cost of a superficial harmony. Most executives look at a quiet boardroom where everyone agrees as a sign of high alignment and brilliant leadership. The apex operator looks at a room with a zero conflict and instantly recognizes a massive structural failure. If 10 highly educated, highly compensated experts look at a complex $50 million logistics deployment in Jebel Ali and completely agrees on the first iteration of the plan, one of the two things is happening. 1. The biological conformity trap. The executives are mathematically incompetent and do not actually understand the depth of the problem. 2. The fear matrix. The executive sees the flaw. But the corporate culture is so heavily penalized for disagreement that they are prioritizing their own political safety over the survival of the firm. Superficial harmony is a compliance-heavy trap. It turns HR into a cost center because HR is spending its budget enforcing social conformity rather than driving cognitive friction. When you prioritize politeness over precision, you actively penalize your most brilliant employees. The elite engineer or the apex financial architect does not care about corporate politics. They care about the absolute truth of architecture. When they point out a catastrophic flaw in a project, they are not trying to be mean. They're trying to save the company from $1 million write-off. If HR steps in and reprimand that elite engineer for their tone or forces them to attend an emotional intelligence workshop because they did not use enough smiley faces in their Slack message, the company commits algorithmic suicide. The elite engineer realizes that the company values the egos of an incompetent manager more than the accuracy of the code. The engineer's attrition thresholds breaches. They resign. The company loses its apex cognitive processing power. Also, a middle manager could avoid feeling uncomfortable for 10 minutes. Happiness does not drive innovation. High-stakes, rigorous, data-driven disagreement drives innovation. Phase 3, the architect of radical honesty, the problem-solving deep dive. If toxic positivity is a disease, what is an architectural antidote? We must move past the era of emotional management and deploy the architecture of radical honesty. We must reframe conflict. In the legacy corporate mindset, conflict is viewed as a breakdown into interpersonal relationship. In the 2026 Apex enterprise, conflict is viewed as an algorithmic data collision. When two executives argue over a product launch, they are not fighting. They are simply two biological nodes attempting to reconcile conflicting data. Executive A possesses data indicating the market wants feature X. Executive B possesses data indicating feature X will break the backend latency. The goal of HR is not to make Executive A and Executive B like each other. The goal of HR is to facilitate the rapid, uncorrupted transfer of that raw data so the optimal mathematical solution can be extracted. To operationalize the radical honesty, you must deploy the physics of Lean Six Sigma delivery into your communication protocol. In Lean Six Sigma, a defect is anything that does not meet the customer's requirement. In corporate communication, a defect is an unexpressed truth. If an employee holds a piece of data that proves a strategy will fail and they do not express it, that is a catastrophic communication defect. You must systematically remove the social penalty for delivering negative data. You must build an environment where the fastest way to promote it is to successfully identify and mathematically prove a flaw in the CEO's logic. You replace the fake smile with the cold, undeniable respect of raw competence. You teach your workforce that authentic conflict resolution does not mean lowering your voice and holding hands. It means laying your data on the table, stripping away your ego, and letting the best mathematical argument survive the collision. Phase 4, the algorithmic conflict protocol, engineering the fiction. We have diagnosed the latency of a fake smile. We have shattered the illusion of harmony, and we have defined the radical honesty. Now, we must execute the physical protocol. How does an organization actually trains its human to fight productivity? You must deploy the algorithmic conflict protocol. Rule 1. The abstraction of ego, the decoupling. The primary reason humans fear conflict is that their biological ego is attached to their ideas. If you attack my idea, my amygdala perceive it as an attack on my survival. You must force the decoupling of identity and output. When a conflict arises, you implement a strict linguistic rule in the boardroom. You ban the words I feel and I believe. You transition entirely to the data indicates and the architecture shows. When an engineer says your supply chain routing is fundamentally flawed and the receiving manager must be trained to process that is not an insult but a diagnostic alert. You are attacking the code, not the coder. Rule 2, the data-driven confrontation, the OTBI standard. You cannot have radical honesty without radical verification. If two executives disagree, the argument cannot be settled by whosoever is louder or whosoever has the highest title. The conflict must be settled by raw telemetry. If the HR and the operations are fighting over an onboarding bottleneck, HR cannot rely on a positive feedback survey. They must pull the Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence Report, the OTBI. They must show the exact, undisputable timestamps proving that the latency exists in the operations approval gate, not the HR processing gate. When you mandate that all conflict must be backed by high-fidelity data, you instantly eradicate 90% of a corporate whining and petty politics. Only the truth survives. Rule 3, the synthetic adversary, the institutionalized red team. To truly kill toxic positivity, you must maintain institutionalized friction. You must build a synthetic adversary. Before any major corporate decision is finalized, whether it is a new software deployment or a real estate acquisition in Dubai South, you mandate a red team phase. You assign a specific group of apex operators the explicit sole objective of destroying the proposed plan. You give them total immunity from HR reprisal. Their job is to find the vulnerabilities, attack the financial projections, and brutally expose the logistical flaw. You force the conflict to occur in a controlled, highly aggressive simulation before the capital is deployed in the real world. When the red team attacks, the proposing team cannot smile and deflect. They must defend their architecture with math. By legally mandating this adversarial simulation, you remove the stigma of being negative. Pointing out the flaws is no longer considered toxic. It is the most highly valued operational function in the enterprise. Phase 5, the sovereign HR operator, the execution. The final phase of this transformation is an absolute restructuring of a human resource department itself. HR must execute a violent pivot. They must transition from being a cultural police enforcing smiles to becoming the sovereign HR operator, engineering high-performance system. You must abandon the role of a party planner and assume the role of a business architect. Why? When you successfully implement the algorithmic conflict protocol, you transform the entire velocity of the corporation. The organization moves faster because the data is uncorrupted. The latency drops to zero. The elite engineer stays because they respect an environment that values truth over diplomacy. When an apex operator does not achieve this monumental cultural shift in the dark, they must extract your leverage. You must build an undeniable high-fidelity proof of work. You do not write a boring PDF memo about your conflict resolution policy. You broadcast your dominance. You step into your acoustic-treated digital environment. You fire up your elite cine gear, your Sony FX series camera with a razor-sharp cinematic lighting. You import the raw 10-bit data showing the correlation between your new raw data-driven confrontation protocols and the subsequent 40% drop in the project failure rate. You color grade this presentation flawlessly utilizing the advanced node-based architecture of DaVinci Resolve 20. You record a highly structured, unsentimental video essay, deconstructing exactly how your HR department eradicated toxic positivity, mapped the value stream of a corporate communication, and build an anti-fragile truth-seeking organization culture. You broadcast this artifact to your private network. to elite recruiters and to the global CEOs. When a tier 1 executive watches the broadcast, they do not see an HR administrator. They see a structural engineer of human capital. They see an operator who understands that the highest form of corporate empathy is not a fake smile but the ruthless, efficient delivery of an absolute truth. Look closely at the culture of your current organization. Look at the meetings. Are the people agreeing because the math is perfect? Or are they agreeing because they are terrified of a social penalty for dissent? If your company operates on good vibes only, you are navigating a massive, invisible minefield of unexpressed operational failure. The positivity is a mask for impending collapse. Stop enforcing harmony. Stop penalizing your apex operator for pointing out the defect in your architecture. Eradicate toxic positivity. Deploy the algorithmic conflict protocol. Institutionalize a synthetic adversary and let the raw, uncorrupted data drive your organization to absolute sovereign dominance. Process the data, execute the strategy, and I'll see you at the top.